So this is going to be a pretty off-the-cuff video. Don't have much of a script planned. I have a few little bullet points for the introduction, but beyond that, I've thought about making a video like this for a while, um, and I have been thinking about it a lot today when I decided to do this. But it's mostly just going to be me rambling for an hour or so. So the topic of this video is who would have won the televoting in Eurovision from 1956 to 1997. For most of Eurovision, they of course just had the jury, and 5 countries experimented with televoting in 1997, and then most countries were using it by 1998. Though it had been used in national selections since the 1980s. I can't remember which countries used it first, but I know Denmark's been using it since 1990 at least, but I don't know beyond that. Obviously, televoting probably wouldn't have been possible in the earliest days of the contest, back when telephones didn't have you didn't have a button or a dial at that point. You had to call an operator to connect through to someone. But television shows in the past did have poster voting before they televoting. I'm not sure how that would have worked with Eurovision. I guess they would have performed all their songs live, and then people would have had a week to post in their votes, and then the results would have been announced a week later. I suppose that's how it would have worked. Before I start, I'm going to go year by year, starting with 1956, going all the way to 1997. And before I start, I'd like to set a couple of ground rules. They're not so much rules as they're just guidelines, because I feel like these are easy traps to fall into with a discussion like this. First of all, being a fan favorite doesn't mean that you will win the televoting. Take Eurovision 2001, for example. Estonia and Denmark would never win a fan poll for that year. It's always Greece and France that are the fan favorites for that year. Yet on that night in 2001, it was Estonia that came out on top. I think 2006 is another good example. So back in 2020 over lockdown, Eurovision did those official Eurovision Again shows, and those are going to influence my choices quite a bit. But they did contests after the televote was introduced, and the winners ended up being different from who actually won the televoting. So 2006, for example, Carola for Sweden won the Eurovision Again, whereas it was Lordi who won the actual contest, who won the televoting, and I think it's clear enough why there was that difference. Lordi is, of course, an absolutely unforgettable Eurovision performance. It's one of the performances that's remembered by casual fans. My voice would be cracking a lot. It's always cracking a lot whenever I record things, and I always have to cut it out and just do another take. And then second ground guideline, as I'm calling it, is that being a commercial success doesn't necessarily mean winning the televote. So I think Eurovision 2002 is a pretty classic example. It was the year that Latvia won with I Wanna by Marianne. The song was pretty infamously a commercial failure within Latvia and also internationally. I did see on some fan site that it was the only winner never to be released outside its home country, though the Wikipedia page does have does say that it was in the charts in Belgium. But I don't know if that was just an airplay charts, or if it was a proper singles charts. And another example that comes to mind is Armenia's entry from 2022. which I think got 21 points from the televote. By the way, if I say anything that's wrong during this video, I'm going to be saying a lot of things that are factually incorrect because even my extensive knowledge of the Eurovision Song Contest isn't perfect, so I am going to be misremembering things. So when I edit this video, any corrections will just be on the screen. So anyway, in 2022, you had Armenia's entry, which didn't do that well overall. I mean, it got to the final, but it didn't do too well beyond that. But then it ended up being used as a TikTok song and ended up being on Billboard in the US. So, that shows that, getting onto charts doesn't necessarily mean that, on the night, people would have picked up the phone and voted for you. Another one that comes to mind is Moldova's entry in 2010. Because after the contest, it became the Epic Sax guy. But it didn't do that well, like even with the televote in the original contest, because that was before the, you had Gandalf meme. It like barely got through the final. It was like 10th in the televote and then 3rd in the jury. I don't even know how it qualified. With that ranking, the way the jury and the televote combined was just very funny. Not like ha funny, but like weird. During the years between 2009 and 2015, when it was just a single, it was just combining the two rankings together, combining the sets of points together as it was before 2013. Obviously, you watching are gonna have a lot of disagreements with me, and I fully welcome that. I wanna get the ball rolling on a discussion, and I feel like if I put out my takes first, that will encourage people to be telling me that I'm wrong, and that it would actually be like this. And I feel like the best way to do that is to just give my opinions first, and if I have any bad or controversial takes, so be it. So said already that I'll be pulling from Eurovision again. Another thing that I'll be pulling from is the Song of Songs contest. So this was an online kind of voting poll that took place between 2011 and 2014. It was on a YouTube channel called ESC Arturo. It had recaps of every contest from 1956 until 2004. And basically there were like set jurors. I remember I tried voting in it, so I was just a teenager at that point. I tried voting in the one for 2000. I tried voting for Ireland, not knowing that it already had like set juries, and it was full at that point. I think it had like over 50 juries by the end of its run, like 50 individuals just voting on each edition of Eurovision. And I tried voting, and I was annoyed when my votes weren't counted. But I found it was a good guideline for me in making this video. So first, it's interesting because you kind of see how ScoreWiz, because they used ScoreWiz scoreboards for each edition of this Song of Songs contest. And it was kind of interesting seeing how the format for ScoreWiz changed a bit between 2011 and 2014, though it did change like a lot more dramatically a few years after that. I think in like 2017. I think it's been more or less the same since 2017, or except like changing how the televotes are announced. And I flipped through all of these today, and I did find it really useful, especially for the older contests, because the songs from that year wouldn't really get talked about. Most of them have barely any views on YouTube. And yeah, it was good, like as a starting point for the particularly early contests. I have watched every single edition of Eurovision. I did it over 5 years, from when I was 13, then I was almost 18. when I finished, and of course I've watched each edition since then. Jury is still out on whether I will watch it next year, given everything that happened. I wouldn't say I'm boycotting, because like I'm not, calling for other people to stop watching the show. I think, you know, you should, you can watch it next year if it's what will make you happy. But just considering all the bullshit that happened this year, I just don't think I can bring myself to watch it next year. But that's not a final decision. We'll see. So let's get started with 1956. So the top two for the Song of Songs contest were Freddie's song for Germany. I obviously don't remember the name of it because I don't know any German, but it was that rock and roll song. I believe the only example of a rock and roll song in Eurovision history, unless you count Belgium 2009, which you really shouldn't. That wasn't really rock and roll. That was more, Elvis's like Viva Las Vegas era. I don't know what you'd call that genre. I don't really think it was rock and roll at that point, but maybe it was. But Belgium 2009 still doesn't really count. And then the other one you had was Luxembourg's entry, Ne Crois Pas. So both of them were, among the more upbeat entries that year. The very early editions of Eurovision, they were mostly just ballads and like pretty old-fashioned ballads at that. But Ne Crois Pas was a bit of a more upbeat song. Trying to think how I would even envision the televoting for these early years. I was thinking in my head, just in this hypothetical, just imagine the 12, 10, 8, so on system that we're all familiar with is just being used for every contest in this scenario. I don't know how the system with 10 votes per country, would work with televoting, though it kind of is. I think out of every jury system the Eurovision had, that system that was used, it was used from 1957 to 1974. 1974 was the last time it was used, though there were a few other systems in between. But that one was the most in spirit of what eventually became the televoting. Was 10 judges per country, each one had one vote. Still don't know which one of the two I would pick for 1956, and I'm kind of just stalling. God, it's only the first one, and I'm already stumped. Oh, how am I going to get through all of these? How? Really don't know. I think I will go for that German rock and roll song. I feel like it just had the most of a selling point out of all the songs in the first contest. I would say it's my winner from that year. I'm going to try and avoid saying my winners for this year. I will be saying it for a few of them if I feel it's relevant enough to say. Of course, I'll make it clear, just because I choose a song for a winner doesn't mean that I like it. Doesn't mean that I actually like the song. The songs that I do like, that I know that I do feel would have done badly in the televote, and that's that. So yeah, 1956, I'm going to be going with Freddie from Germany. 1957, I think, is a much easier call. Denmark for 1957. It's usually the song that I see cited when people put out their video saying all of my winners for Eurovision Song Contest. I think Denmark is consistently enough people's winners for 1957. It's not my personal winner, but I'm gonna stop saying that. I'll only say it, like I said, I'll only say it a few times, but I'm probably gonna try and keep my personal opinion out of it. But yeah, 1957, Denmark, it performed last, which would have worked in its favour, though I don't know how much that would have mattered in a field of only 10 songs. And of course, it had that kiss at the end, really long kiss, and that was something to make people's eyes pop up at the time. So definitely both those things would have worked in its favour. So I feel pretty comfortable saying, guess we're going with poster vote at this point, that like the poster vote winner would have been Denmark. 1958, Italy, Volare next. 1959. So for the first three, I was gonna say I was going with the same thing as Song of Songs contest, though I've already gone different. In 1956, it was Luxembourg that won Song of Songs contest for 1956, and I went with Germany. But 57 was Denmark, and 58 were Italy. 58 was Italy, but I think those are like easy enough calls. For 1959, it was Netherlands that won, but I don't think Netherlands would have won a poster vote. Possibly it could have. Maybe I'm biased because I don't really like the song. I don't like how it's really slow and then speeds up a bit. But anyway, for 1959, I'm going with the UK. I think it's a song that's just you know really accessible to a mass audience. It's something you can sing along to, if you speak English at least. Though I don't know how much people like would have been exposed to English language songs at that point, because of course nowadays in most countries like the songs on the charts are in English. They're by English, British, and American singers. I don't know how much that was the case by 1959. But I remain firm on thinking the UK would have won poster vote. At what point am I going to make it televoting? Maybe in the 1970s. I'll just fade into it somehow. It's a pretty accessible song. It's a silly little song about a little birdie. Two people sing about their love. And don't there's much else to it. 1960, the jury winner was France. The winner of Song Contest was France. I think it is usually the song that I see as people's winner for 1960. That's good enough for me. 1961, I was pretty set on just going with Luxembourg. Luxembourg's first victory in 1961 has, of course, gone down in legend as being like the secret gay pride entry. It surprised me wasn't that high in Song of Songs contest. I think it was like 7th, which did surprise me. I do still feel like a lot of people would have voted for it. I think one thing to also consider is that people's music tastes would have changed a lot between the 1960s and when this voting was taking place in 2011. The song that did end up winning was Spain, which had actually kind of been in the back of my mind. And I think it would have been a good candidate to win. It was Spain's debut entry with Conchita Bautista. She also represented again in 1965 and got 0 points. And I suppose that was a good candidate for it. It was a very different style for the contest up to that point. Do I really want to... I don't know if I could let go of Luxembourg still winning the televote. My personal winner for that year is Netherlands, but Netherlands never would have won. Yeah, I am conflicted again. I think I'm gonna go with Spain. It was a new style for the contest, and that always does help a lot. Just doing something different that'll get a lot of people on your side. 1962. So the two most modern songs of that year were the UK and Germany, which tied at 4th place, and I guess Sweden as well. Though I don't think Sweden would have won, even though it is my winner from that year. Between the two, the UK is a bit more commercial, um, but Germany's entry has a bit more bite to it, and I think that can work, in a country's favor. Um, there have been a lot of entries that have just, the singer just fought for people's votes, and that can go a long way. So I'm gonna go with Germany. So it's two victories for Germany so far. It's the first one that's won twice, and of course, Germany didn't actually get a win until 1982. So it's been a bit of a plot twist so far. 1963. There's of course a lot of controversy. Well, one specific reason that there's controversy around the voting in 1963 is because of Norway. Norway announced their votes, but they didn't follow the correct procedure for announcing the votes. They accidentally, because you had to give the song number and then the name of the country, and Norway accidentally did it incorrectly. So then Norway, the host, did Katie Boyle host that year? Was she hosting at that point? I think she hosted once during the black and white. I'm going on a tangent now. Just trying to think. I think that was the UK hosted in 1963. I think that was the only time the UK hosted during the. Oh no, they hosted in 1960 as well because Netherlands. I think they hosted in 1960, 1963. I think I've got that right. Did Katie Boyle host both times? I don't remember. Okay, that's completely off the point. Let's just go back to this. So Norway, they kind of messed up their votes, and then when the host said that they had announced them wrong, they asked if they could call them back at the end, and then their votes had inexplicably changed. And if they had gone by the original votes, Switzerland would have won rather than Denmark. But then Denmark ended up winning. They did, I believe, verify the votes to make sure that they were correct, and they showed that Denmark, was the legitimate winner. I'm still going to go with Denmark winning the postal vote. It was a pretty modern song. And Eurovision was really trying to get with the times at that point. They weren't really fully able to do it until France got one, and we'll get to that. For the first decade or so, songs were mostly pretty old-fashioned even for the time. 1964, I think it's safe to say that Italy would have won. Gigliola Cinquetti, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, with Nonoletta. I think it won by a pretty huge landslide, though, given the voting system at that point. It was the 5-3-1 system, where like 4 countries would get nil point every year. But it still won by a pretty massive margin. And it won Song of Songs contest as well, so I think it's a safe enough bet for winning a postal vote in 1964. 1965, obviously, a France goal for Luxembourg. This song completely changed the trajectory of the kind of songs that were sent to Eurovision. And that is something else to think about, is that the results for each year really influenced what songs would be sent in future editions. I think 2007 is a great example. You had Lordi winning. You had Lordi winning the. I cannot talk. You had Lordi winning the previous year, so you had quite a few rock songs. The year after, you had Moldova, France, Czech Republic, Iceland, and Finland again. So that was already influenced by Lordi's win. So we're just going to be looking at each year in a vacuum. I guess imagining that everything up to that point was the same, and then seeing how things would have gone from there. 1966. Just gonna go with Austria. Song of Songs contest. I think Austria did still win, but Spain ended up being second, which was interesting. I don't even remember what Raphael's entry sounded like. I can remember his 1967 entry. I don't really remember his 1966 entry that well. So I don't know, maybe Spain, but I'm pretty inclined to just stick with Austria. 1967, don't think there's any question that Sandy Shaw would have won either way. What else did you have? Ireland wouldn't have won. I think it was too old-fashioned to win a public vote. France, possibly. I think Luxembourg was a bit too, trying to think, not indie obviously, or not really niche either, but offbeat maybe. I don't think that's the right word either, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I know Love Is Blue did end up being a Billboard #1, but that was, completely different arrangement. But yeah, I think 1967, Sandy Shaw. 1968. So a lot of people believe that Eurovision 1968 was rigged. I don't believe it. I think Spain did legitimately win. I think it's easier to look back and see what a huge hit Congratulations ended up being, but as I've gone through, being a commercial success doesn't always translate to winning the televote. I still think it would have been between Spain and the UK. The UK won Song of Songs contest, though for Eurovision again, Spain managed to win. I think it is worth taking into account the voting window was much short. They're not doing Eurovision again anymore, so the voting window was much shorter for Eurovision again. But I guess that makes it a bit more accurate. I think it would have been close either way. God, I think I'm gonna go with the UK. I just would have had a bit more mass appeal than Spain's entry, but I wouldn't have ruled out Spain winning. The story about it being rigged just makes no sense. It was some staff member who was working with the Spanish broadcaster at the time, said, they bribed juries to help promote Czechoslovak and Bulgarian artists, even though neither country was taking part at that point, though there was a Czech singer representing Austria, but that was during the Prague Spring, where Czechoslovakia very briefly had a more had loosened some restrictions on society. That didn't last, but Eurovision did fall during that brief time. 1969, of course, had the four-way tie between the UK, Netherlands, France, and Spain. So Spain won both Song of Songs contest and Eurovision again. I think I have flip-flopped a lot on which of the four is my favorite. I think I would say at the moment that Spain is my favorite of the four. I think of the four, would I discount every other song that I don't think any other song that year was a winner, even though my personal winner isn't among the four. But I don't think any other song that year was really a candidate to win the whole contest. I think Spain, it's a catchy song. I think it would have. I think out of the four, most people would have had the most people sold on, would it have been picking up the phone at that point? See, I don't know exactly when they started doing like dialing for telephones. So we still on postal vote 969. I suppose we are. Maybe it's a mixed system at this point. Who knows? I mean, sure, you had telethons back then where people just called into PBS to vote, not to vote, to donate money. So maybe they could have just done that. Could have people calling in. Probably would have had to have like a much longer voting window, but I suppose it could have been feasible. 1970. I think I'll be sticking with the jury winner, Dana, and the song did win Song of Songs contest, and it has a bit of a mass appeal about it. It's basically the Irish version of my favorite things from The Sound of Music. Just think about some other songs from that year. I mean, could kind of say similar things about the UK's entry. Obviously, it's not my favorite things thing, but it was another like very accessible song. I know Mary Hopkins said it was the worst experience of her life. They already had a party planned for her when she got home. Then she had to tell them that she lost. Though I assume they already knew. They've been watching it on TV. It was also the year that Julio Iglesias represented Spain, and he only really. I did actually look this up before I recorded this. Julio Iglesias didn't really have a career outside of Spain at that point. I know it said he started charting in Germany in the 70s, and then he had some songs in the US by the 1980s. I don't really think his song that year had much potential to win, but maybe I'm wrong. 1971. I don't think Spain would have won as much as I adore Spain's entry that year. Could the UK have stood a chance? It had Clodagh Rogers in the pink hot pants. Caught a lot of people's eyes, obviously. But whether it stood any chance of winning, I don't know about. I didn't even think I was going to talk about this entry, but Netherlands has come into my head as well, just because it was a song that did something completely different and owned it, but I don't really know if it was enough to win. I don't know if enough people would have been in the mood for a medieval song. I'm sure it would have done well under the televoting, but whether it would have won. I was going to talk about Norway's entry in 1966 as well, because I feel like it was another entry that was kind of like that just came in with something completely different. Though again, I don't know if it would have been enough to beat Austria. I'm going to stick with Monaco for 1971. It's a pretty unforgettable vocal performance. Song was pretty successful commercially, even if the English version was it wasn't even a translation. It was just, they took out all those deep lyrics about like growing up and leaving your childhood behind and just made it this weird song about meeting someone in a dream. A lot of Eurovision songs got butchered in translation. 1972, I feel like would have been a bit closer than the previous year. It could have been the UK, could have been New Seekers. That is a song that would have appealed to a lot of people. Whether it would have beat out Vicky Leandros, I don't know. That is another pretty unforgettable vocal performance. So in the Song of Songs contest, Yugoslavia was in the top 3, which I thought was really interesting. I never would have considered Yugoslavia as like a televote winner for that year. That was the year they were represented by Teresa, who had represented Monaco in 1966 and got 0 points. Then she came back for her own country in 1972 and came ninth. So Luxembourg or the UK could see either of them winning. But I think I am going to stick with Luxembourg. And I think 1973 is where everyone's going to be talking about, does having commercial success lead to winning the Televote and Eurovision. I think the top three were all pretty commercially successful. The song that came third was Cliff Richard, so of course it was. Spanish entry, which came second, was of course the most commercially successful, and that's how it ended up being in the 50th anniversary show, Final 14. But I think was that just because it was so well known. I believe it charted in the US, but don't quote me on that. But Luxembourg's entry was also successful enough commercially. I think pretty much every entry in the 70s was. Most entries would be remembered still be remembered from people from that generation. Yeah, I'm still going to stick with Luxembourg. I mean, I've gone with five actual winners in a row now, but Eurovision was just at its peak in terms of commercial success in the 1970s. So I think that makes it harder, to say, what the televote would have been into at the time. Did they just go with did each winner become commercially successful just because it was the winner? I don't really know. Moving on to 1974, I don't think there's any question that Sweden would have won. ABBA has really just, it's an understatement, but it's fair to say that ABBA has become one of the great Eurovision legends. It's often cited as the best Eurovision entry of all time. It won Congratulations, 50 Years of Eurovision. It was at the top of Watch Mojo's list. I think any official countdown of the best Eurovision songs of all time would usually have it at the top. But you wouldn't really see people calling it the best ABBA song. The Watch Mojo list of best ABBA songs is the first thing that comes to mind. I know Watch Mojo isn't always a good indication of what people think in general, but they of course had Dancing Queen at number 1, I believe. So it's not even considered the best ABBA song. Do people just consider it the best Eurovision song because it's ABBA? That is what I believe. But yeah, it still would have won that year. But of course, you still need to keep in mind that no one knew who ABBA was at that point. And there were a couple of other songs that year that did become successful commercially. There was the Netherlands' entry, and the UK's entry sort of. I know Olivia Newton-John hated the entry, and it was her participation was kind of seen as a failure for her, but I still wouldn't consider either of them for the victory over ABBA. I don't think that was happening. 1975. So I think 1975 was interesting because the songs that ended up on the songs that ended up at the bottom of the scoreboard have become huge cult classics. It was the year that Turkey debuted. That is a song I see a lot of people putting as their winner for that year. I don't think it stood any chance of winning a televote, simply because people were really pissed at Turkey over what had happened in Cyprus. I still think it would have gotten a decent enough position. Not really a winner. Then let's talk about Germany. So there is some there was a poll done on some website, like I think in like 2010, where the viewers of the website, it was a Eurovision fan site, they were asked to name their favorite Eurovision entries of all time. Then they had like a countdown of the top 25, which ABBA didn't win. Interestingly enough, ABBA was number 2 and Valaria was number 1. But Germany's entry for 1975 ended up on the list. I mean, it was an incredible vocal performance. I don't think that's up for debate at all. But it got missed by the juries. I think Luxembourg gave it 8. Like that wasn't the only set of points it got, but it was like the only significant set that it got. So the juries kind of dismissed at the time, but whether the televoting would have latched onto it is really a massive question mark. The song that won that year, Ding a Dong, of course, like every other winner from the 70s, did end up being a huge commercial success. Though, of course, it was kind of a small fry compared to the two winners that it was in between. I think I'm still pretty set on putting Netherlands down for that year. It was a song that appealed to a lot of people at the time. I mean, it seems pretty corny nowadays. Since the lyrics are just completely meaningless. But I think at the time it would have done just fine. 1976, I think that one's no question at all. The UK would have won Save Your Kisses for Me. It's a pretty overwhelming victory. The juries, almost every country gave it 7 points or more. The lowest was Ireland. We only gave it 3 points. The Irish jury was known for being very stingy with the British jury. Sorry, not the British jury, the British songs. But yeah, it was a pretty runaway success within the contest. Surprisingly, it's the best-selling Eurovision song of all time, like even higher than Waterloo and Valaria, which is very surprising. But it is the case. There's nothing else to it, really. So the UK have the most wins up to this point. UK has 4, Luxembourg has 3. I just have it all on a Word document. I will do a proper count at the very end, but that's how things seem to be so far. I would like to talk about 1977 and 1978 at the same time, because I think under a televote system, they would have both been pretty similar deals. It would have been the jury winner in our timeline up against, a big, big superstars. In 1977, you had Germany, whose Sense of Convention, who had a song that was number 1 on Billboard. And 1978, you had Baccarat representing Luxembourg. I believe Yes Sir I Can Boogie was a Billboard number 1. It seems like it would have been, though I don't know that for a fact. And if I'm wrong, I'll make it known in the screen caption. Take a shot every time my voice cracks, by the way. It's too late to start, but you could still get pretty drunk off of it. So it's between those songs and then the songs that did end up winning, because both, I feel like I'm just parroting over and over that every winner in the 70s was a commercial success. Or at the very least were songs that everyone knew at the time in Europe. So for 1977, I think I'm going to go with France winning with L'Oiseau et l'Enfant by Marie Myriam. But then for 1978, I feel it's a bit trickier. I mean, Israel's entry would have been very much capable of winning a televote. Would I consider any other song? See, the other songs in the top three were Belgium and France, which were like pretty old fashioned ballads. Um, Not that old fashioned ballads can't win the televote, but it's more of an uphill battle. Who came fourth that year? Who came fifth? Don't remember. Oh yeah, Ireland came fourth, I think. I don't think Ireland would have won the televote. Um, I don't even remember who was fifth. It's probably not important. God. So I think it's between Israel and Luxembourg. You know, I mean, their entry Parlez-vous Français, like it's not on the same level as Yes Sir I Can Boogie, but it's certainly up there. I think I'm gonna stick with Israel. I'm gonna stick with the jury winner again. I think we have seen time and time again that being a big name doesn't always mean success in Eurovision, or like it's not a guarantee for victory. I mean, Tattoo almost won, and I mean, that was that was a performance to say the least. 1979. I don't think this is too much of a hot take, but I'm gonna go with Germany with Genghis Khan. I think it's up there as one of the most iconic Eurovision performances, at least before the new millennium. It was going on the same sort of shtick as Boney M's songs at the time, like Rara Rasputin. It's a catchy song. It was a song that everyone can dance to. It was, I suppose, a Euro disco song, you'd call it. The other songs at the top that you had Israel, Hallelujah, you had Spain, then you had France. So for that Song of Songs contest, it was France that won, but I don't think France would have won the televote. I totally get why it's a huge fan favorite. It was a pretty incredible vocal performance. But I don't think it would have won the televote. I think Germany is a safe enough bet for the reasons that I've given. By the way, certain someone on Twitter said that their post was like, Euro fans have no problem with Germany's entry about Genghis Khan, yet they're blasting Israel's moderate entry this year. What's that all about? Which is a really, really stupid take, and I hope that I don't have to explain why. 1980, I think 1980 is impossible to call. 1980 is one of the most iconic Eurovisions in history, which is why I chose to make a Cinema Sin style video about it 5 years ago. I uploaded the video in 2020. That was when I finished editing it, but most of the recording was done in 2019. It's not a good candidates for that year. Netherlands would definitely be the fan favorite today from that year. But again, being a fan favorite doesn't mean winning the televote. I think Ireland and Germany would have both been good candidates. Maybe not the UK, though it's not impossible. Switzerland, I think, was a bit too old-fashioned to win. Then you have Belgium, of course. I don't think Belgium would have won, but it would have, of course, got a lot of televotes. Probably would have got like 5th place or something, like something along the lines of what Alf Poyer got in 2003 for Austria. I think it really is between Ireland and Germany. Germany had a pretty unforgettable performance, and Katja Epstein's vocals came through as well. I mean, the same could be said for Johnny Logan. It was a close enough victory, or at least it seemed to be. Like, I think Germany was pretty much out by the last vote. I think they were like 10 points behind by the last voter. I think I'm going to stick with Ireland, but I think Germany could have very well won that year as well. 1981, Box Scissor would have won by landslide. I don't think there's any question about that. I know there's people out there who would love the alternate universe where Blue Johnny Blue won for Germany, but I don't think it would have been in this alternate universe. I think the reason it barely won was because of Jay's iffy vocals, but of course not everyone noticed. I didn't notice until I saw fan sites pointing it out. But it is there. She was trying to harmonize, but she was like doing it in the wrong key or something. But, it's up there as an unforgettable Eurovision performance. The dance routine and the ripping of the skirt. So it's safe to say that it would have won the televote. I think the following year is a pretty safe bet as well. Germany, I mean, they won the jury vote in a landslide, and I think it would have been the same under the televote. 1982 was an interesting year in that there were a lot of upbeat songs, and yet most of the ballads ended up floating to the top, with Israel being the main exception. But I think things did work in Germany's favor. Just being a bit of a calm after the storm, performing at the end after a bunch of upbeat pop songs. Of course, it had that little message about world peace, which doesn't hurt either. Well, it actually has hurt a lot. In many other cases in Eurovision, Netherlands 2009, Switzerland 2006, etc. 1983, I think Israel would have won pretty safely. Don't think Luxembourg would have won. I think Luxembourg's victory was kind of a blip in the long history of French ballads winning the contest. I know it wasn't the last French language song to win. There was Celine Dion as well, but that wasn't. Well, was that still a ballad? I don't know. Like, it was an upbeat enough song, but it still had the components of a ballad. So I don't know if we call it a ballad. But I don't think Luxembourg was really would have really been a candidate to win the televote. Wouldn't have ruled out Sweden or Yugoslavia either. I think both are songs that would have had a lot of mass appeal. But Israel's entry, I think it is usually the song that I see cited as the winner for that year, as people's winner for that year, and it did win the Song of Songs contest as well. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with Israel. I think 1984 is a pretty tricky one. Sweden had a pretty memorable performance, a catchy song to go along with it. I still cannot really believe that it won the jury vote, to be honest. I feel like it was a bit of a random one on their part. Big fan favorite from that year is Italy, of course, which I don't really understand, to be honest. I think it's a very corny performance, but it just seems to strike with a lot of people. I mean, not only did it win Song of Songs contest 1984, I do always see it put as people's winners for that year. But is that just a case of being a fan favorite? Could it have really, won a televote in 1984? Um, Going to the other songs that were at the top of the jury vote. Ireland possibly could have won, though I don't know if it had like enough of a selling point. Though a winner doesn't necessarily have to have that. Spain was third, though I don't think Spain would have won. Denmark, another possibility. It was more of like, it's pretty like quintessential 80s song, Denmark's entry that year. Um, I am just gonna go with Italy. I think I'll go with the fan favorite this time. Though I don't feel fully confident in that decision. But yeah, that's what I'm going with. 1985, I think Norway would have been safe enough. I mean, it is an absolute earworm of a song. In terms of any other candidates for winning, Germany in second place, maybe. What placed? I think Israel was like seventh or something. I don't know if Israel could have won. Israel's entry has like that one like really distracting backing singer. But I don't know how much that would have mattered. Who else was like at the top in 1985? Who was third? Don't remember who was third. Oh yeah, Sweden was third, of course, the hosts. Though I don't think they would have won over Norway. I know Kiki was relieved that she didn't win because she was pregnant. She hadn't publicly announced it yet. I'm going to stick with Norway, and going to stick with the jury winner for 1986 as well. Sandra Kim for Belgium, youngest winner of all time, and will remain that way as long as the rules stay the same. I don't know who else could have won that year. Switzerland, no. Luxembourg, no. I don't even remember who came fourth that year. I do like to believe that Turkey would have done a bit better. Ninth was their best position up to that point, and it would remain so until 1997. I think it could have stood a chance at doing a bit better under Televote. That does raise the question, because I have looked into like, when did Turkish diaspora really build up in like Germany and the Netherlands? Because it was clearly there enough for it to affect the Televote even in the earliest years of 1998, 1999. Though it's the number of points it was getting from each country would certainly increase as the televoting years went on. But yeah, I'm sticking with 1986 for Belgium. 1987. So the three songs that were at the top of that Song of Songs contest were Ireland, Italy, and Finland. So Ireland, Johnny Logan's second entry, which also won just like his first entry. The song came third in the 50th anniversary show, Congratulations, 50 Years of Eurovision. But I don't know how much of that was because of just, how much Johnny Logan has gone down in Eurovision legend. I do wonder how much the song could have stood on its own in a televoting system. Italy's entry that year, I don't even remember the name of the singer, but it was like a singer who was already really successful. The performance was a little messy, but like that could be said for every Italian entry between 1976 and all the way to 1989. I think every Italian entry was kind of a disaster. I don't mean that they were bad, just that they were more just all a hot mess in their own way. Again, not necessarily in a bad way, sometimes in a good way. And it was an era that got Italy away from just sending ballads year after year. And then you also had Finland. So Finland is a massive fan favorite. For that year, it is constantly cited as one of the quote most underrated entries in Eurovision history. I know, like in Finland, it was like number one on the list of their most beloved entries. I know 1979 was number two. So Finland is a massive fan favorite for 1987, but whether it was really a candidate to win, I don't know. But I'm going to stick with Ireland for 1987. So, Johnny Logan still gets 2 wins. (1988). So that year you had Celine Dion barely winning the contest. She won by 1 point, despite the fact that it was Celine Dion. And some people do cite that to her outfit. Her outfit was very weird. She had that perm and the big puffy skirt and the white jacket. Bit of a strange ensemble. Of course, the song is remembered as one of the great Eurovision legends. I mean, it was a fantastic performance. I think definitely one of the best vocal performances in Eurovision history. But would people have seen that at the time? I mean, it barely won the jury vote. It was Scott Fitzgerald's song that almost got the victory. I don't think that the UK would have won the televote. So like I said today, like I started flicking through the results for that Song of Songs contest. In case you've forgotten what that is, I did explain what the start order was, but it was a fan contest that ran from 2011 to 2014. It was on a YouTube channel called ESC Arturo. By the end of its run, it had over 50 jurors voting, 50 people voting as juries. And it's a good enough indication of where the Eurovision fan base stands on each song. So Switzerland did still win, and I don't know if they did Eurovision again for 1988, but I don't think there would have been any doubt Celine Dion would have won. I was surprised by how low Denmark was, because like before I started flicking through this Song of Songs contest, I was thinking maybe Denmark, because it was like a pretty upbeat, pretty energetic song, despite being sung by someone who was 8 months pregnant. Would that have worked in its favors? I don't know. Did anyone else reveal it? I know plenty of women have been pregnant while doing Eurovision, but I don't know how many of them had actually revealed it. I don't think Ira Losko had announced that she was pregnant when she did in 2016. Even though she is seen rubbing her belly. Got Luxembourg's entry. Of course, Lara Fabian would also become a massive singer in the Francophone world. Maybe could Luxembourg have won? Did it have more of a chance than Switzerland? I don't know. Am I still going with Denmark? Could it be Denmark? I think I'm ruling out the UK. Who finished 5th? I don't even remember who finished 5th that year. Sure, I'll remember in a minute. So yeah, right now it's between Switzerland, Denmark, and Luxembourg. Would Luxembourg have had more of a chance? I know I said that like Luxembourg's victory in 1983 was a bit of a blip on the radar. At the very end of like a long line of French ballads. But that doesn't mean it couldn't have happened again. Of course, it almost happened in 2021 with Barbara Pravi. It's not even a French last name, so it'll be like Barbara Pravi. So it's not that it couldn't have happened again. Lara obviously had a much better outfit than Celine Dion did, but who knows how much that would have mattered. I think there have been a few songs that were, over the years that were ruined by just having a bad outfit. Survey 2013 comes into mind. I'm sure there's more examples, but I can't think of them. So, God, I didn't expect this year to be so difficult. I think I know what I'm going to go with for the next few years. I feel like I'm going to rule out Denmark. But I mean, Estonia was pretty low down on the Song of Songs contest for 2001. I think it was like 7th or 8th, and like it still won. Could Denmark still have won? I really don't know. Please, like, voice all your grievances at my opinions in the comments, because I need them. I do not have a clue. So you've probably figured out at this point. How long have I been talking? I hope it's still recording. Okay, it has been over an hour at this point. Am I going to put in all of this just unedited? I feel like I should. I feel like it's the best way to do it. For each one, I'll have the year and the flyer on the screen, so you can just flick through it to see if you agree with me, and just ignore my rationale for each one. And if I do a follow-up where I take other people's opinions more into account, that one will hopefully be a lot shorter. And I'll have a whole summary at the end, so you can just skip to that if you want. I don't know. My gut is telling me Denmark. I probably would have gone with Denmark, like, if I hadn't seen the Song of Songs results, and like that's not like definitive of what the televote would have been like at the time. I think people had definitely stopped. Telephones definitely had buttons on them by 1988. Did they always have buttons? Or well, dials before that. I don't. Did it mean that you could always call someone directly? I've no idea. I don't know. Telephones aren't my niche hobby that I've invested my whole life into. That title goes to Eurovision. But I am going with Denmark. I'm not confident with that answer. But it's what I feel is right. 1989. Big fan favorite for that year is Spain. It's a pretty incredible vocal performance. Came 6th in the actual contest, and if the juries didn't see it as a shoe-in winner, I don't know if the televote would have seen it either. Though there have been many cases of fantastic vocalists doing well with the televote and doing doing not so well with the jury. It has happened. Um, has happened very often, but it has also happened the other way around as well. I don't think Yugoslavia would have won. I think it still would have done well. It still would have been top five. I think Yugoslavia's victory was a bit of a fluke, to be honest. Um, not that it was. I'm not saying that it was not winning material whatsoever, but up against a few other songs that year. My choice for this year, I think, I went into this, I think, knowing what I was going to pick for 1989. It's Denmark. I think it's the entry that would have had the most mass appeal. It's another very catchy, like, earworm song. It's a pretty iconic performance, like, mainly because of the conductor switching halfway through. I hope that's good enough reasoning for you lot. There's a lot of really good candidates for Eurovision 1990. Not Italy. Do not think Italy would have appealed to Televote. France, maybe. Spain would have been a really good candidate for the victory. Just an unforgettable Eurovision performance. Not just because of the technical difficulties, but also just in general. It's really, I think, definitely up there as one of the most charismatic Eurovision performances. Iceland might have been an outsider for the victory. Just for being like a really energetic Schlager song. But I don't think there's any question about who I'm going for this year at Yugoslavia. It won both the Song of Songs contest and Eurovision again for that year. It's a pretty incredible performance. Tai Chi. Had a lot of comparisons with Marilyn Monroe, which Tai Chi didn't like. But still very, very memorable performance, and I do go back to it every now and then just to double check that I'm still gay. 1991 would have been the same three-horse race as the jury voting, Sweden, France, and Israel. So France won the Song of Songs contest, and Sweden won the Eurovision Again contest for that year. I don't know if I would rule out Israel. I think Israel definitely had the mechanisms to be a winner that year, despite the absolutely horrible lyrics that I've already made fun of on this channel. But yeah, I think it's just based on the fact that Israel didn't win Song of Songs or Eurovision Again. I am going to put it between France and Sweden. No. I mean, France is definitely the preferred song among fans, or maybe it's just that, the people who prefer France are louder about it. France did lose, and Eurovision fans are a lot louder when they disagree with the results compared with when they agree with the results. Sweden would, of course, have appealed to more people, and it's a pretty iconic performance with the two guys in the suits dancing along with Carola. Could have easily gone anyway. It could have been Sweden, it could have been France, could have been Israel. But I am going to give it to Sweden. What my personal favorite is of the three, that will remain a mystery. I'm sure you can find YouTube comments I made as a teenager on all three sides at different points. 1992, I don't think Ireland would have won. I think it would have been too old-fashioned to win the televoting. I think the same would go for Malta. The UK song was a bit more modern, but I don't know if it was a song that enough people would have been incentivized to pick up the phone and vote for. So my winner this year is going to be Italy. It did win Song of Songs contest and Eurovision again for that year. Not that's going to be a definitive guideline for each year, but I think it is a good enough indication. And Italy definitely had what it took to win the Televote that year. Mia Martini had a very unique voice. And like you can just hear the craft work in every note that she sings. I didn't like her voice for a long time, but I definitely appreciate it now. Rest in peace. One interesting thing is that Mia Martini was a stage name. Her real name wasn't Mia Martini. But Linda Martin, her dad was Italian. His last name was actually Martini. So Martini wasn't Mia Martini's real last name, but it was Linda Martin's real last name. I don't know if she was baptized Linda Martini or Linda Martin, but my point here was it was a family name. I do wonder how Italy's participation in Eurovision would have played out if they had won in 1992 instead of 1990. I don't know if this is fact, but I have heard a lot that Italy's winning and then hosting in 1991 was a big part of the reason why they pulled out of the Eurovision for a long time. And the hosting in 1991 was a pretty infamous disaster. The hosts couldn't speak English or French. They were constantly making mistakes during the voting. There were constantly faults with the sound in the studio. You had Greece's entry being ruined by that terrible saxophone player. So what would have happened if they'd hosted in 1993? Would they have just ended up withdrawing a couple of years later? I mean, definitely was incentive for them to withdraw, with the relegation system. Feel like it would have made Italy just feel less pushed to participate if it means that other countries are going to keep sitting out because of them. I don't know. I think going forward there is a lot of butterfly effect because the results of each year, from 1993 all the way to 2003, were affected by, well, first in 1993 with the pre-qualifier, and then with the relegation system and also the pre-qualifier in 1996, would have greatly affected what countries participated in each year. Who knows, one of the countries got relegated in our timeline maybe would have come in with a winner. Don't know that. I mean, Latvia very nearly got relegated in 2002. But that can be said of the contest as a whole. Like I was saying before, a lot of the entries that were being sent to Eurovision were heavily influenced by previous results. I think also by the voting system at the time. One thing I would say in regards to that is that there has been a lot of controversy over how, what a huge margin there has been with the jury voting for the last 2 years, with allegations of collusion. But I don't think it was that surprising that that Sweden won the jury and last year, and that Switzerland won the jury this year. I think the new system has made the jury voting a lot less competitive. And you kind of saw that when they first brought back the juries. Before they brought the juries back in 2009, no song in Eurovision had ever cracked the 300-point mark, and then most of the televote winners after 2009 got at least 300 points. Not Germany. Germany was one of the ones that didn't. Azerbaijan didn't either. Was it every winner from 2012? We don't know about 2013. We don't know how many points Denmark got on the televote. I know Norway didn't get 300 in 2019. Believe every other televote winner got at least 300. But that had never happened before they brought the juries back. And I think that was a testament to how the jury voting made the televoting less competitive. I guess the televote has become more competitive thanks to the new system where there's no juries in the semis. It's not just affecting who gets to the final, but it's also affecting what kinds of songs each country is sending. I don't think Finland would have sent Windows 95 Man under a 50-50 system, for example. Okay, 1993. So there was a massive elephant in the room with Eurovision 1993, and that's the Bosnian War. So you can make a lot of comparisons to that with Ukraine's victory in 2022. So I am of the firm belief that Ukraine would have won either way, even without the war. It obviously wouldn't have been by such a huge margin, but it was a song that it took a genre that traditionally didn't do well in Eurovision and just ran with it. And it would have worked in their favor that there was a lot of division between the jury and televoting that year. Moldova was second, and that got nowhere with the jury. I think Serbia was fourth. I think Spain was third and Serbia was fourth. I mean, Spain did do pretty well with the juries, and Serbia not so much. And then on the other end, you had UK winning the jury vote. I know Ukraine was fourth. I don't remember who came second. I think Spain was third, and I don't remember who was second. Oh yeah, Sweden was second, I think. Going back to 1993, I mean, the song is pretty well remembered by fans now. I think it came 8th in the Song of Songs contest. It came 16th in the actual contest with the jury, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Putting aside the war, would Ireland have been a candidate for a televote victory? I mean, Niamh Kavanagh's voice was incredible. The winner for the Song of Songs contest was the Netherlands, which I hadn't even considered, but I suppose it makes sense. It was probably the most modern song that year. And Ruth absolutely worked the stage. But whether I would consider any song that year to be a contender, against, I don't want to call them sympathy votes, because I don't think people were sympathy voting for Ukraine. I think people were convinced that it was a song that deserved to win. The Bosnian entry for 1993, I don't think it's really a winner on its own. It would have done better in televoting even without the war. It wouldn't have been 16th. But I think it would have needed a push, to get anywhere near a victory. obviously Bosnia War was devastating. It's not a fair trade. But I am going to put Bosnia down as the winner for 1993 under the televote. I don't think it would have been as massive a landslide as Ukraine's televote victory in 2022, but I think it would have got there. Now on to 1994. So 1994 is where the butterfly effect really comes in, because relegation would have completely changed which countries would have participated. I don't think Ireland would have stood much chance at winning. I think it was just way too old-fashioned of an entry to win the televote, even if it did win the jury by a pretty massive margin. It was the first ever entry to pass the 200-point mark. I think Eurovision 1994 as a whole would have been very different if it was under a televote system. I know a few songs that year, like their national selections had televote. Like I know Finland's had televote. Which didn't really work out for them. But I am going to have between second place Poland, third place Germany. I mean, ballads have won under the televote, and I think Poland's entry in 1984, I think, was a much more modern ballad, like more in line with the ballads that were on the charts at the time, compared with Ireland's 3 consecutive victories, Linda Martin, Niamh Kavanagh, and the other 2 twats. So yeah, between Poland and Germany, you know, I said in my 1996 video, it was like a very rare Eurodance effort in a sea of more, you know, old-fashioned ethnic ballads, and even the more upbeat songs during that time weren't really, you know, quintessential 90s songs. So I think either of them could have been the winner, Poland or Germany. Poland did win the Song of Songs contest, but that wasn't really a surprise. Whichever, I don't know which one would have, you know, given more incentive for people to pick up the phone and vote for it. I think both of them, you know, had a lot of incentive for that. Germany being a Eurodance song, you know, within a massive sea of songs that were not Eurodance songs, but then on the other hand, you have Poland, Edyta Górniak, just an outstanding vocalist all around. France's entry has come into my head as well. It was very goofy, like, for Eurovision 1994 standards. I wouldn't call it a joke entry, but it was very, like, it was quite out there for Eurovision 1994. France was quite out there, like, during Eurovision in the 90s. It is interesting, like, France is known for, like, their chansons, their ballads. Like, they almost left the contest altogether in the early 80s because they felt that it was just becoming a land of cheap pop songs. But then, you know, by the 90s, when everyone was singing ballads, France was like, fuck you, we're singing pop. Don't think France would have won that year. I think it's still between Poland and Germany. I really don't know who to go with, because I think both of them could have easily won. I think it would have been a very tight vote. would kind of have been like Verka Serduchka against Maria Sarifovic. You had the really dramatic ballad, up against the, well, Verka Serduchka is a very different ballpark to be given a party. Yeah, it's a standard enough Eurodance song, but it was a breath of fresh air within the lineup of Eurovision 1994, because it's not much of a comparison with a drag queen dressed in silver. I am gonna go with Poland. I'm really not sure. Well, I'm not sure about any of these, but it could have easily been Germany or Poland. But I am gonna go with Poland. 1995. I think Nocturne would have won. The 90s was not a good time for Eurovision in terms of commercial success. As much as I love the editions of that time, but Nocturne does seem to be the best remembered, like, of the entries of like the winners in the 90s up to when they started introducing Televote. Seems to be the most best remembered, like, out of fans who have only seen contests from like 2010 or after. They still seem to know that song well. It really doubled down on what Eurovision had become by the mid 90s. It barely used any words at all. I've seen many people describe it as not a song, but an experience. I think it would have won. Well, it could have won by a much larger margin than it did in the actual contest. Well, it was a safe enough margin, but they didn't get that many points. The only thing is that it was quite early in the running order. I think it was like fifth in the running order. It was Poland first, then Ireland, then Germany. I can't remember if it was Bosnia or Norway next. I think it was Bosnia fourth and then Norway fifth. The earliest position for Televote winner was Turkey in 2003, which performed fourth, and like Turkey barely won that year. But yeah, I am going to stick with Nocturne winning. Do I even want to consider any other songs? France, I don't know. I mean, France would have done well under Televote, but like it obviously would have been top 5 either way. Whether it was really a winner, I don't know. Spain, another possibility, but like I don't think there's much of a comparison between Velvet Comigo. I'm talking in general. In my personal opinion, I do slightly prefer Velvet Comigo over Nocturne. And they're both fantastic entries. But thinking of things big picture, I don't think there's much comparison between the two entries. And in third place it's Sweden. I don't think Sweden was, as much as I love Sweden's entry from that year, I don't think it's much of a Televote song. I mean, it would have done alright under Televote, but not really a winner. 1996 next. So it is commonly repeated within the Eurovision fan base that Gina G's "Ooh Ah Just a Little Bit" was the song that created the Televote. But I don't know if it would have actually happened. Is the song just really well remembered because it was such a commercial success? Would it really have, been what people would have voted for on the night? I mean, there is a bit of a butterfly effect, like with the pre-qualifier. I suppose under this exercise, we would be applying Televote to both the audio pre-qualifier and the actual contest. And we could have got a completely different running order. Maybe Gina G could have been like 20th in the running order, stood stood a better chance. But who knows? But I have been saying up to this point, we're just looking at each edition in a vacuum. So I suppose we're going maybe with the assumption that the grand final for 1996 is the exact same. Maybe they used, at least for this exercise, they used juries for the pre-qualifier and then televoting for the grand final. I think for like the audio pre-qualifier where everyone was sending a studio recording, I think there's no question that Gina G would have won televote. Though I guess televote wouldn't really have worked for an audio only pre-qualifier. Maybe it could have been like an internet vote. I don't know, did enough people have the internet in 1996 for that to be feasible? Could have been a mix maybe. But also, even in 1996, I think probably would have been even easier to rig in 1996 than it would be now. And it's still easy now. I mean, it's why the online voting in Junior Eurovision was such a disaster. But just looking at the main contest with the same 23 qualifiers as in our 100% jury timeline. I had thought about Sweden, but Sweden didn't finish that high in Song of Songs contest for 1996. It was like 8th. Still had Ireland at 2nd. So maybe I would still put Ireland, but I would like to stress again that like Song of Songs contest, and fan polls in general today aren't. I'm just hammering this point again and again that being a fan favorite doesn't mean winning the televote. So looking at this scenario where the UK is still performing second, and no one has ever won performing second, and it's probably never going to happen as long as there's still producers meddling with the running order. So this Song of Songs contest, it had the UK first and then it had Ireland second. So maybe I just stick with Ireland anyway. Like I hadn't even considered Ireland as winning the televote. I mean, the song is a bit more modern than the Irish winners from before, from 1992 to 1994. It is a bit more, in line with the 90s. Obviously, it's not really what was on the charts, but it doesn't feel like a past relic, like especially Linda Martin's entry in Rock and Roll Kids, maybe Niamh Kavanagh's to a lesser extent. I think I'll go with Ireland for 1996. And then finally 1997. So 1997 is when the televote was introduced. It was tested in 5 different countries, and the rest of the countries used the jury. So Katrina and the Waves, the UK did win out of the televote countries that year. And if you just go, if you put the UK aside and just look at it in terms of percentage, it got 10 or 12 from the other 4 televoting countries. But I don't know if it's the best sample. It's Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, all German-speaking countries, and then Sweden. I don't know if that's the best representation of, how all of the countries at the time would have voted under a televote system. I don't know who else. I mean, I think Turkey was too early in the running order to win, but it wasn't impossible, of course. It wasn't even that high in the German televote, despite the diaspora. Actually, was it? Oh no, I think they got 12 from Germany. I think they got 12 from the German televote. I guess the other countries I'm thinking of, I mean, Turkey still got points from them, but not the highest points. Though I did also have a look at the voting from to 98, and before I started this recording, just as a comparison, looking at Austria was relegated in 1998, but looking at Germany, Switzerland, Sweden, and the UK, none of them gave 12 to Don International. The Don International only got 3 12s overall. But yeah, imagine if 1998 had mostly been jury and it had just been those countries, it would have painted a very different picture of what the televoting is, of what the televoting is, it would have painted a very different picture of what the televoting as a whole would have been like for that year. So yeah, who knows how the rest of the continent would have voted under 100% televoting in 1997. But I would still go with the UK. I think pretty famously, Katrina and the Waves had never put Love Shine a Light on an album because they thought it was just, way too cheesy for their image, for their style, like for any of the albums that they put out. And that's why they ended up sending it to Eurovision. Of course, ended up winning the jury vote by a landslide. Wasn't as huge a commercial success as Gina G, but still pretty good. Okay, so here's a rundown of all my picks from 1956 to 1997. If you chose to skip ahead to this point, you're free to go back and forth and look at my reasoning. I hope you look at it before you type a comment telling me how I'm completely wrong. So the ones in gold are the same as the jury winners, whereas the white ones are different. So the majority are the same as the jury winners. I think the ratio is similar enough to how it was, looking at the contest from 2009 until today. Though I think that the division between the jury and the televote has increased as time has gone by since 2009. And there's a whole chain, it's like a chain of 10 contests where it's the same from 1969 and 1978. And I feel like those contests are a bit harder to call because Eurovision was such a huge part of pop culture during the 1970s, at least in countries that were good at Eurovision. I know in Greece it wasn't as well known. And then on either end of the chronology, you've got a bit less of it. So in the 1950s and early 60s, and in the early 90s as well. Then we'll move on to looking at the number of wins as a whole. Not just my picks, but also the winners from 1998 to 2008, and the televote winners from 2009 to today. So at the top of the list we have, with 6 wins each, Denmark, Italy, and the UK. So Denmark and Italy both have 3 victories each in our timeline, while the UK has 5, including the tie in 1969. Next we have Germany, going from 2 victories to 5. Then 4 countries have 4 wins each, so Ireland and Sweden both have gone down from 7 to 4. Israel, same number of wins, except, switching out 1979 from 1983. And then Norway, same 3 winners, plus 2019, because they won the televote in 2019. Became 6th overall, 6th or 7th, I believe. Luxembourg has 3. I think they had 5 wins. 61, 65, 72, 73, and 83. Yeah, it's 5. So now they're down to 3. France only has 2. I believe France has 5. So now they're down to 2. Spain has 2 wins. So it's the same, except 1969 is no longer a tie. Austria, the same two winners. Ukraine, same two winners. Oh, except 2016 is gone, so they're down from 3 to 2. Finland goes from 1 win to 2, so including Cha Cha Cha. And Russia, their win in 2008 plus Sergei Lazarev in 2016. The Netherlands has gone from 5 wins all the way down to 1. But a lot of these are just countries that got 1 win. Monaco got 1 win, Belgium got 1, Yugoslavia got 1, Bosnia and Poland haven't won yet. Estonia, Latvia, Turkey, Greece, Serbia, Azerbaijan, Portugal, those are all the same. And then you've got Croatia, who won the Televote this year. And that leaves 1 OG country, so out of the 7 that debuted in the first contest, with no wins at all, and that's Switzerland. So Switzerland won in 1956, 1988, and this year in 2024, but I didn't put any of them down as picks for winning the Televote. But I may be completely wrong. Maybe Celine Dion would have still won the Televote, and I'm just overthinking it. So thank you for watching or listening, or just commenting either without watching. I appreciate that too, because really I just want to get a discussion going about this whole topic. And signing out.